all protocol are respected. My name is Aruwaji Akintola Michael from Nigeria. I am affiliated to Ladoke Akintola University of Technology in Nigeria here. Actually, it's very unfortunate that we are not able to make it to come down to UK for this presentation because we were denied entry visa. Okay, but so we'll be looking at the topic of impact of sustaining innovations and sustainable practices on distance and e-learning education in Nigeria. The content is basically on Nigerian issue. So looking at my introduction, we have issue that Nigeria is the most populous country in the world. That has been confirmed by the UNDCA 2000. Nigerian education system face many challenges, which it's including issue of inadequate infrastructure, insufficient funding, low quality education, and of course that's aligned to the issue of where Nigerian government realizes that it's very important for them to look for a way to sustain, give a sustainable development towards education in terms of improvement and quality. Of course, we narrow it down to the issue of that is where the issue of e-learning and open distance education becomes a strategy for improvement to have an access to education in Nigeria. So the question is now looking at how sustainable of this, the adoption of e-learning and open and distance education in Nigeria, which is becomes a subject matter of the day. So this work actually look at the issue of lack of understanding regarding sustainability practices and sustaining innovation towards distance and e-learning education in Nigeria becomes one problem. The other problem is that the extent to which sustaining innovation affect the quality and effectiveness of ODL has become another issue. The third one is that there's a lack of research on how sustainable practices could be integrated into e-learning and ODL education in Nigeria. So research question, we look at those things and then, of course, so that's the same thing that we use even in looking at our objective to look at, we evaluate the impact of sustaining innovations on e-learning and open distance education to assess the impact of sustainable practices on e-learning and open education in Nigeria. So, and we use that objective to form a null hypothesis. Just two null hypotheses were formed. We want to look at if there's no significant impact of sustained innovation on e-learning and open and distance learning in Nigeria. There's no significant impact of sustainable practices on e-learning and open and distance learning in Nigeria. So the literature review, we use two methods of reviewing that literature. We look at conceptual review and the theoretical review. For the conceptual review, we look at it from the context of two, from two concepts. One, we look at it like a human factor concept, which a lot of scholars artificial. Then the second one, we look at the concept of pandemic or something that is natural. So that's all worked on that aspect. So if you look at it from the human factor, reducing costs, increasing accessibility, factor actually that is affecting sustainable innovations and sustainable practices. That's been the major concept that we're able to find during the conceptual review largely. So the theoretical review, yes, we proposed two theories in supporting, talked about the conceptual review, which I mentioned earlier. Now talk about the theoretical review, mentioned two major theories. The first one, we have talked about that the term model proposed that users' attitude towards technology, which influences their intention, to use it. And the second one, which theoretical basis of the consign-based adoption model, which was prepared in 1970s by Wallace and Dosset. So that model provides guidelines for how to support individuals through this process to ensure successful adoption and integration of innovation. Okay, so and looking at the method we are being sectionalized into 4: research design, we use population of the study we considered. The method of data collection we also used, and the method of data analysis was part of the methodological research that we conducted. So for research design, we use explanatory, correctional, and quantitative-based cross-sectional research design. Many scholars have used this particular research design. There are a lot, which so that I decided not to put any name there because it's a general kind of research design. The method of data analysis, a primary data source and the questionnaires, were used as a survey in a 5 Likert time scale. So we consider all the 18 Nigerian universities that have awarded accreditations to conduct ODL programs in Nigeria. Then number of staffs were used, and at the end of the day, we were able to get about 360 respondents for it. So the measurement scale instruments were in form of a latent construct, and these are the constructs that you can that we have here in actually defining our variables that we use in conducting our analysis. So method of data analysis, multivariate analysis was considered because of its tendency, equating to balance and relating to the model of theories, and of course because of number of construct variables that we use. So we decided that multivariate analysis would be more better in analyzing this work. So on result analysis, for the hypothesis 1, we test that there is no significant impact of sustaining innovation on e-learning and open and distant learning in Nigeria. So if you look at the part analysis, the first thing we do is that we ensure that we conduct a validity test of which the threshold meet up with more than 0.85%. So which consider that, okay, we can move forward using that this model. So the model fit measurements was also used, and we're able to see that our chi-square, which has an excellent interpretation. The only one we have problem that place is the comparison our CFI, which is terrible, but at least out of that 5 indicators, we're able to get 3, which makes that model also acceptable. So we look at all of this, and the latent variables that we use. We first try to look at what is the basis of the relationship, the correlation, the covariances that actually happens between all of these variables that we itemize. We use ODL mode innovation to measure sustaining innovations. We use process innovations, which we refer to as pruning. We use pedagogy innovation. We use technology innovations. All these innovations were used to measure the sustainable innovations. And when we talk about disruptive technology, which we use disruptive technology, we use low-end disruptive, we use new market disruptives as a loading factors. Measuring that construct, measuring the latent construct. Then to the sustainable practices, we use quality assurance, measuring sustainable practices. We use curriculum to measure it. Then we use policy and management of open and distance. Then we use student services and tutoring. Then we use ICT innovations. Then we use collaborations. But in terms of ODL educational development, which we refer to as ODLE, that ODLE we use increased access to education as as a Latin variable. We use improved quality of education. We use reduced cost of education. Then for learning technology, we use virtual learning. We use blended learning. Then we use virtual classroom, content sharing platforms. These are what we use. So for the last one, which we have TS. For TS, we have tools and software. That's what TS means. And the Latin variables is learning management system, LMS. Then we use mobile device to measure it, and audio response system to measure. And then the last one, like we use a video lecturing, like live streams to measure it. So these are, what the path analysis is actually showing. Now, the proper interpretation of what it is that we conduct the correlation and the covariances that we have shown here, that we have here. So what we discover is that there's a very weak correlation. There's a very weak correlation, even for the few one that has a positive correlation, but very weak. And we have a lot of negativity, correlation. So it's a signal of what we actually try to test. Before we get to discussion of findings, I'm really just talking about the instances of the correlations that we have conducted, and even the covariances have shown that there's a weak, very weak patterns of relationship between sustaining innovations and sustainable practices towards e-learning and open and distance education in Nigeria at the moment. So we use this path analysis to look at the effect, because we use open and distance learning as independent variables, and we use our sustaining innovations. We use descriptive strategy, and we use tools and software as but the tools and software, they're like control variables, and why the destructive strategy also control, but the independent variables there is the sustaining innovations. So of course we use almost the same method, because we still, okay, thank you, okay, thank you. So these are what we're able to do, and then we have the regression weight analysis, of course. And for the second hypothesis, we use the almost same method, looking at the relationship that existed between all the variables that we use, and we conduct the covariances and the correlations of all the models. And for the second one also tested the effect and the regression analysis for that objective too. Now, our set of findings, based on the result that we have, like I established, that there's a very weak relationship. So few factors of sustaining innovations and open distance learning education in Nigeria. Further, there's a negative significant effect between the large variable construct. So that means that the hypothesis should be rejected. That means there's no any real tangible relationship between the sustaining innovations and open and distance education in Nigeria at the moment. So for the second one too, it happened the same thing, that we have to reject, accept the hypothesis, accept the results. Which that means we have to accept the hypothesis that there's a problem in terms of sustainable practices on open and distance. Now, the conclusion is that ODL education system in Nigeria still lacks sustaining innovation plan. 2, ODL and e-learning education system in Nigeria still lacks sustainable practices. Both of them we are very at the dark side at the moment in Nigeria. So looking at recommendations, recommendations were recommended to 3 particular categories. For academics, we recommend that further research should be conducted on how to improve the quality of education in Nigeria through ODL mode and e-learning platform. For professionals, they should comply with ODL best practices in the world. Then for policymaker, adequate OER policy should be adopted, so that we can also, be able to move forward. I would like to say, to add this to it, that just about 18 universities out of 120 universities in Nigeria, just 18 of them, Thank you once again for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for presenting your research there. I'm overwhelmed by the number of stats that are on the page, as I always am in these circumstances. Any questions for our colleagues? Anything from their data that you can speak to, anything that chimes with your experiences back in Nigeria or elsewhere? Please.
Yes, just observation on the last slide.
Okay.
So just change compile to comply.
Okay.
The last slide.
We can probably manage that.
Last slide. Last slide. I'm coming, sorry.
Yeah, your last slide, I think, was just auto correction.
Okay.
Worry not. Okay.
Okay. I'm trying to. Sorry, hold on. Last slide. It's not moving. All right.
Yes, professionals.
Yeah, professional support to the system.
They should comply. Not comply.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I've seen that.
They should comply.
Thank you. Yeah.
When he was presenting, he said adopted. So
okay.
They should adopt.
Yeah.
They should adopt. Yes. It's a good point.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's not okay because if you are adapting, you should tell us from where you adapt.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, please. The policymaker can adopt and adapt, probably depending on the way they wanted to do it. Thank you.
No problem. Any other points from this?
It's not a question. Probably he might try to think about the statement of problem.
Okay.
In your introduction, most of the things you highlighted under the problem statement were not established in your background. So it's very, very material that those items you found as the basis or justification for this study should be discussed in your items in the background. And I also think that the issue of COVID-19 is very, very material in this issue of distance education in Nigeria. So I also think that you should try as much as possible to infuse in your background the challenges of COVID-19, which actually sparked off the issue of distance learning in Nigeria. It's just a suggestion.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Oh, well, it didn't spark it, but it got to the highest, the apex of it. Yeah. So it's just a suggestion.
Yes, thank you, ma. I welcome that suggestion. I noted, but at the same time, I mentioned the issue of COVID-19. What happened is that in Nigeria, basically, issue of open and distance learning have started far back before that COVID-19. Of course, COVID-19 sparked the awareness, but the continuity of open and distance education before COVID-19 it's a serious mess. During the COVID-19, it's also almost the same position. It's just that a lot of propagandas and a lot of people were just using Zoom as an alternative at that time. So they were not actually following the normal open and distant learning procedures or processes. So I think that's about. Of course, I will ensure that I balancing the affairs of what post and pre conditions of pandemic and all COVID-19 into the work.
Thank you. This is a good point to make there. I don't think there's anything else anyone would like to raise. Please.
Can you go, Michael? Well, thank you very much for the presentation. But please, can you go to the research, to the slide on research design?
Your slide on research design.
You said?
Your slide on research design.
On research. Okay.
Design.
Okay, research design. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Research design. Sorry. Research design. Okay.
Okay, so I'm not so clear on your population and your sample.
Okay.
There was a place you mentioned that you used only 20 academics.
Okay.
And then 360, I don't know what, 360 students.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
360 academics or not, I don't know. It's not very clear.
No. Okay. Thank you. What happened is that we only look at list those universities that have gained full accreditation to operate open and distant learning. That's all the. Actually, there are 17 at the moment of when we conducted this this way. So plus Nigerian Open, National Open University of Nigeria make it 18. So, but what we find out is that during the time we are trying to administer our survey, we discovered that in open and distant learning, some university does not have, they don't separate the staffs of the staffs of the university operating open and distant learning. Some of the universities. So one, again, those people that are working as technical team, because most of the materials are just given to technical teams to put online. So we have to put all the technical teams, put them together. So at least we're able to get. Hello?
Okay. Michael, I wonder if there's a final comment you'd like to share, because we're about to go. Okay.
I just want to make an observation.
Quick. Okay.
The third bullet, it said that 20 ODL staff members, includes academics and technicians, were chosen at random from each university. Well, they didn't choose from our own university, and we are one of the universities that got
From my own university.
What is the name of your university?
I think there's a methodological challenge that's been laid out here that we can come back to. I'm going to ask, this is sort of final remark, Michael, is there anything you'd like to add? Or we'll thank you for your time, thank you for dialing in, and we'll have the opportunity to give you another round of applause. So thank you both.